Welcome to AI for You. Today's use case focuses on using AI to overcome creative blocks in strategic planning and content development. Whether you're experiencing writer's block, struggling to find the right metaphor, or just can't seem to crack the angle on a complex strategic decision, AI can serve as an ideation partner to help you push through these obstacles. Using the prompt in today's show notes, you can break down your creative block into manageable components and work through them conversationally with an AI tool. In this episode, we talk with Eric Hollenbeck, the communications manager for research at Washington State University's Carson College of Business. Let's jump right in. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So start off by telling me a little bit about how you're integrating AI into your work at Washington State University.
So I use generative AI tools a lot for strategic planning around storytelling and kind of marketing campaigns or PR campaigns. So my primary role at Washington State University in the Carson College of Business is to do the news writing and public relations around our academic research. So I have found like the integration of generative AI tools in, story ideation, into early drafting concepts, into kind of like storyboarding and working through like the creative process. That's where I've really found the most kind of benefit and worthwhile use in terms of like my role and position.
Yeah, I know a lot of times when I'm talking to, especially like content creators, they're very hesitant sometimes to start using AI because they're like, well, it can't write. It can't write like me. It doesn't write good content. I was like, well, you don't have to just use it for writing. The whole strategic brainstorming research, it's so good at all of those things.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think anybody who has worked in a creative field has experienced some type of creative block one way or another, whether that's writer's block or whether that's, coming up and trying to come up with a design concept or things like that through the graphic design process. And I've found tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot that we're using here at Washington State University to be very helpful into kind of expediting or getting over that hump like more quickly. Typically, when I'm working with different prompts, I'm trying to feed it, my own original content and like thoughts and ideas. So I can also, when I'm thinking about getting over creative blocks, do that in the same way, like, very much describing the kind of story angle that I'm working on, how I'm trying to maybe, for example, find some creative metaphor or example to help illustrate a point. Start to really try to walk through that in a very like systematic piece by piece way, having a conversation back and forth with, whatever LLM tool I'm using.
I'm a huge fan of talking like voice back and forth with these tools. And all the time I'll have, ChatGPT interview me about something and it just pulls out all my expertise and knowledge into whatever, content I'm trying to create or whatever piece I'm trying to work on. It's just a huge unlock, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So what was your AI journey like? Were you an early adopter? Were you hesitant to start experimenting?
I guess I would classify myself as an early adopter. I think it was November of 2022 when I started really seeing a lot of news just in like the media about OpenAI's ChatGPT, right? I believe it was around November of 2022 when I first started taking note of this. And then coincidentally, and I think partially because I work in a college of business, and our faculty members were starting to see, industry adopt or take interest in AI. I believe it was January of 2023. So just a few months later, our college was hosting its weekly, what we call our lunch and learn program. So these are opportunities for faculty members, staff members to come in and just share different topics of interest. Usually they're research focused, but some are like operations focused. And we had a couple faculty members across disciplines. So we had a professor from our information systems and a professor from our marketing program come in and talk about, at the time, they were just getting our college kind of familiar with or introducing the concept of AI and generative AI. And that was kind of the moment there in early 2023 where I took note and said, well, if our research faculty are starting to talk about this technology, maybe this is something I need to learn and get more familiar with. And so later in that year was the American Marketing Association conference in Chicago, I believe it was. I had an opportunity to attend that. And that year, they had a track that was focused on AI emerging in higher education. So I thought that was a great opportunity to go over there. And one of the first sessions was so eye-opening to me. And the question that was posed to the large group was something like, how many of you in this room are using AI tools? And I was quite surprised at how few hands went up at that time. So this was November of 2023. I was thinking about how we were talking or starting to introduce and get more involved here in the Carson College of Business. And I was wondering if this was just, are we out in front of it? I'm thinking to myself, or is, other people, are other institutions so much farther behind? And, I'm wrestling with all these thoughts in my head, but it was a moment where I was like thinking to myself, as we were seeing here in the business college, more of our industry partners talking about AI, even coming to the college and asking what we were doing to train students. That was like the early indicators of like, okay, I need to at least deepen my understanding of the tools just for the sake of knowing that it's coming into industry and being incorporated, whether we want it or not. Thinking about the speed in which staff or faculty have been adopting AI tools, I think that from my perspective, I was very fortunate to be in a college that was kind of forward thinking on that in terms of realizing that this is going to be a tool that not only will students need to understand as they enter in the workforce, it's something that staff and faculty should be learning as well. So those were really kind of the early stages of learning.
It's incredible that you're part of an institution that was so forward thinking and open to the new ideas. And I know, from going to these events and from seeing like kind of some hesitancy in a lot of institutions about integrating AI. What do you think are the biggest challenges when it comes to integrating AI for higher ed?
One of the challenges is I think that there is still people out there within higher education that feel like AI tools are cheating in a way. And as a result, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that speaks to, how we are as like moral and ethical human beings, right? Like it's good to be thinking through those things. But what I see, or what my observation has been, is that that kind of mindset is kind of self-sabotaging to some degree. And this is a comparison early on as the institution was talking about it back in the late, 2022, early 2023 period. It was more of like, this is what the tool can do, but it's evolved kind of over time over the past couple of years, where now there's more alignment, not only in the use of these tools, but using them and building like the responsible use and the governance and the policy around it. And I think by doing those two pieces, that is a way to overcome some of the individual hesitancy of, are we supposed to use it? Should we be using it? Things like that. I think for most people, they want to act with integrity. So if it's unclear on what the expectations are from a institutional level on how to use it and how to use it properly, and we don't guide it, that creates uncertainty amongst individuals. And then I think that creates the reluctance. So the more that we have people within higher education, especially higher education leaders, or even those who, I'm going to use the term influencers, right? Because I also believe in like, regardless of what role or position you hold in an organization, you have the power to lead and influence and help your peers out as well. So I think the more that we are kind of building those types of cultures within the organizations, the more that reluctance of using AI will be reduced.
Yeah, 100%. I entirely agree with that. What are some of the more interesting use cases you've seen or heard about in higher ed?
The things that really get me thinking the most of AI use and the benefits of it and how it can really supplement or augment the work that we're doing. I take this from Arizona State University because early on, their president, when he talked about artificial intelligence, he phrases it through augmented intelligence, where it's like supplements the work that we do, it doesn't replace it. Those systems I see as the most like ways to expedite or increase our efficiency or help us analyze vast amounts of data. Those are the most interesting use cases. For me, I use AI tools a lot on the back end for like metrics and performance reporting. Deep down inside as a communicator, right? One of the things that will never change is that we're always selling our ideas one way or another, right? We always have to convince someone, whether it's, a direction we want to go on a project, whether it's taking up a new avenue or new initiative, right? We're always going to be quote selling our ideas to others. So I think that using AI to help not only do data analysis, but even data visualization to help take and present information to leaders or decision makers in a much more digestible, persuasive form. I think that's been a powerful use case and something that certainly I find to be very helpful in my work and also things that I want to continue to explore. Another use case that I have not really deployed in full scale, but I would love to do even more work on this was something that I had picked up when I attended the marketing AI conference in 2024. And that was just some simple automations for organizing different requests that come in or things like that. So even though I think a lot of times generative AI is used as like, let's create content and push it out to external audiences, I'm finding a bulk of my uses are on the kind of like planning and strategizing and reporting out. I think that those are important too. Not only, within the leadership structure and reporting out to directors and deans or et cetera, but because I work in a business college, we're also working with donors to our college. We're also working with corporate partners as well. And so sometimes AI tools to be able to help build a compendium of knowledge and reporting out on different metrics, I've found that to be extremely beneficial.
We know that higher ed institutions are going to have to adapt and evolve to this technology. What do you think that higher ed marketers and admissions professionals can start doing now to get themselves ready for the impact that these tools are going to have on their jobs?
I believe in the phrase knowledge is power. We go out and we talk with industry professionals on what their expectations are for preparedness in the workforce. And our college has conducted surveys on AI and business readiness, ethical marketing, and time again, we're seeing that within industry professionals are expecting that universities are training this next generation of workforce, training them to be able to use AI tools because they're being integrated into pretty much all business processes. In higher education, at the very least, we have a responsibility to understand how these tools are being used because whether or not we are directly working with students, there are opportunities to not only teach and help our peers learn the tools, but also there are opportunities to mentor and train students as well. I think that there's a lot of people who get into the work in higher education to serve students. And so understanding these tools is kind of an extension of that for me. If we were looking at some of the survey work that the Carson College of Business has done, I think it was cited in our AI and business readiness survey that, we surveyed 1,200 full-time employees, and their expectation was that the 88% of the respondents said that universities have a responsibility or a duty to train the next workforce, but only 9% believed colleges were actually doing that. So that's a big gap to me. It's just like reiterates the importance of learning these tools. For those who have never really dove into AI tools, and I'm always surprised when I do hear some of my peers or even colleagues that have never really gone in and used ChatGPT or Copilot or things like that. I always recommend going and finding ways to use it for you that are a quote low cost or low risk. And I'll give you an example. One of the early kind of uses as I was starting to familiarize myself with ChatGPT is I do a lot of work through my local Rotary program. And so I was testing it out on some like strategic fundraising and just very what I consider low risk type use of the tools, right? It's not anything that's going to be supporting like news stories going out or published research or anything with proprietary or confidential information. It was really just me brainstorming and then seeing how I could use that tool to help flush out ideas. And again, trying to use it in a kind of volunteer, non-professional way. I found that to be really helpful in helping me better understand the tools and then also reducing some of that kind of like reluctance or apprehension that I might have had around, is this cheating or is this fair? Or, some of those things that I think are, again, I think they're very common and very natural for human beings to have when they're thinking about these tools.
We've mentioned several times, about the pace of change and how rapidly these tools are evolving. What do you see on the horizon when you look out a year or two on how AI is going to be changing what we do in higher ed?
I think the most potential is back to one of the processes that I mentioned that I'd like to learn more about is a more trusted automation systems. If I'm building out a PR campaign, for example, that I have an AI agent that is a lot more in depth, being able to pull out information kind of almost automatically from different files or sources that I'm not going to say totally hands off, because I would say never leave any type of AI system with no checks, but something that is just kind of more automatic in the way it launches different prompts. I would love to say that I think that it's going to become even more accurate, but I'm not really confident at this point, just in terms of like original generation and not hallucinating. And the reason I say that is because part of my work, I am interviewing faculty researchers who are spending a lot of time on AI integration. We're seeing it in industries from, hospitality with service robots to consumer behavior, the way people respond to phrasing as advertised with AI products. But I was recently talking with a marketing professor, and he's working on some research comparing the different GPT models. Some of their early preliminary findings are that the accuracy or the reduction in hallucinations hasn't really improved over the models. The AI generated creative content, I think we're starting to see fatigue on that to some degree, using that term like the AI slop. And to be very specific, the content that doesn't seem like it has a lot of thought behind it, right? And while most of us are guilty of using it and having fun and posting on social early on, I think that if we try to use that in more serious business communications or marketing and advertising, I'm worried that we're going to have an adverse effect. I think the most value and the thing that I'm most excited about will be the improvement in the way it can run kind of like back end processes or workflows in a more autonomous way.
One of the questions I always end with is what specific use cases, prompts, tips, or anything like that are most helpful to you, either personally or professionally?
Prompt wise, I mean, I think it's less of like specific prompts, but more how we're interacting and engaging with the prompt interface or the LLM itself. If you're thinking about it like you were working with a student intern or a new employee, I think that's a great way to kind of shape your mindset and your approach to it. So, realizing and understanding that it's not like I can throw a prompt in there, be one and done, and take that output and whatever. You have to go in there and kind of provide instructions and guidance and question. And to some degree, I do believe that also has a benefit to the human behind or who's doing the prompting as well. It can allow us to have pause and think through how we are also communicating. So I think that if we keep an open mind about that type of stuff, that we can see that there is potential for a mutually beneficial relationship behind the human and machine interaction, or there can be.
And I think a lot of times just documenting your processes exposes certain weaknesses or opportunities that until you actually get through that process that you have to go through to get ever to train one of these models on how to do what you're doing, you're going to be like, oh, well, why do we do that step anyway? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So if we get into a bigger, deeper meaning, I think that AI can be used to help better understand ourselves, the way we work, some of the things that are bottlenecking us up. I've found ways to just move through certain, for the lack of a better word, bottlenecks in my own workflow. I've found that interactions with AI have been able to help me come up and solve some of these problems for more organized and more efficient workflows. And I think that's been one of the most beneficial things as I'm starting to learn and better understand the way these tools work.
Eric, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing some of your time and insights with the audience. If anyone wants to follow you or connect with you, what are the best ways for them to do that?
The best way would be to find me on LinkedIn. You can just search Eric Hollenbeck or Eric D. Hollenbeck, officially Washington State University, Carson College of Business. If anyone's interested in learning about some of the consumer surveys and responses that we fielded in regards to AI and business readiness or ethical marketing, they can go to business.wsu.edu, click on our Research at Carson tab, and find those reports right there. I think there's some interesting insights that certainly I have used as I'm thinking about how I'm incorporating AI into my own work and processes.
Excellent. Yeah, there's some fantastic resources there. So thank you very much, Eric. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it.
Eric's insights highlight the gap between industry expectations and higher ed's perceived performance on AI training. The statistic that 88% of employers expect universities to train students on AI, while only 9% believe that colleges are actually doing this, should serve as a wake up call. His emphasis on building responsible use frameworks alongside tool adoption addresses a common barrier to AI integration. Many faculty and staff want to act with integrity, but lack clear institutional guidance on what constitutes appropriate use. By developing governance structures and ethical guidelines in parallel with training programs, institutions can reduce the uncertainty that breeds resistance. The reframing from artificial intelligence to augmented intelligence, borrowed from Arizona State University's president, offers a powerful mental model for understanding AI's role. Rather than replacing human work, these tools supplement and enhance our capabilities, particularly when it comes to things like data analysis, visualization, and workflow optimization. Eric's approach to treating AI like a student intern provides practical wisdom for prompting strategy. Just as you wouldn't expect an intern to produce perfect work without guidance, supervision, and iteration, AI tools require clear instructions, feedback, and human oversight. This mindset not only improves outputs, but helps users clarify their own thinking and communication processes. The observation about AI generated content fatigue, about AI slop, reminds us that automation without thoughtfulness damages rather than enhances communication. The tools that will prove most valuable long term are those that handle back end processes, workflow automation, and data analysis, rather than attempting to replace human creativity and strategic thinking. The research Eric mentioned about hallucination rates not improving across models reinforces the continuous need for human oversight and fact checking. We need to remain vigilant about quality control and maintain the expertise necessary to evaluate outputs critically. Please reach out to me with unique ways that you're integrating AI into your professional and personal lives. And as always, blue skies and keep creating.